Alrighty, so this is a game in the Grille 15, the Tier 10 German tank destroyer that replaced the Waffentrager E100. And we're going to talk about a bunch of things in this particular highlight, but what we're going to really focus on is second line play and how to stay active and different positions that you can play on, particularly on Prokhorovka open maps like this, and what it is that we're looking for and how we sort of control the range of engagement. And so there's a number of different locations that we can play it through on this map, depending on which side you spawn on. We know that we have two light tanks on either team, and so if we anticipate that there's going to be surfing, one of the things that I like to do is go to a position where you can anti-surf. And that position is basically in this sort of H1J1 area over here, or this B1C1 over here on the north, depending on which side you spawn on. If you're not going to get surfing, those positions tend to be less important, and then you'll sort of shift over towards either the 6th line over here, or the 6th line back here or up here, up from the north, or over here or over here from the south. But we'll sort of go through that in a progression. So what I'm going to start doing in this particular match is I'll start heading to the west here, and I'm basically watching our scouts at this point. I'm trying to see if they are going to head out to surf, maybe. And if they do, then I'll continue coming this way. But if it doesn't look like they're going to surf, or if it looks like they're just going to YOLO and die, then I won't head out this way, particularly in slower tank destroyers. The Grille is actually reasonably fast right now, so it's something where I know I can drive over here, and if my light tanks die, I can just relocate back to the other side where it's going to be more relevant. And you'll notice that I shifted towards the back a little bit, because even though the Grille does have pretty good camo, I don't want to get lit coming over here, because this is the element of surprise. And so one of the reasons why I like coming over here to do what I call counter scouting is that there's a raised area along this red line here. You'll notice that there's a sort of slope down. It slopes down there, but it comes up over here. And this increase in elevation will give us better shots on these guys that are surfing, because the guys that properly surf, it's going to be difficult to hit them from these railroad crossings. So from like this sort of B6 area over here, or from like this J7 area over here, it's more difficult to hit those shots. But the increase in elevation in either this area over here or the same area from the north actually gives you better shots into these guys, which you'll see shortly. And the other thing that I'm looking to do here is I'm looking to control the distance, right? And so one of the things that's in the base UI now is these sort of rings here, and so this outer ring represents the maximum draw range, and this blue ring here, there's another ring that's underneath it that you can't see, but there's actually two rings here. The blue ring is the maximum distance that I can spot, and it also happens to be the maximum distance at which something can spot me. So like if you look at where this T-54 lightweight is right now, if he has infinite view range and I have negative or 0 camo, he cannot actually spot me until he enters into this blue area. Now, because I do have some camo, I actually have a little bit of buffer as far as how far he can come into this circle before, assuming that he has maximum view range on his tank, before it will start cutting into, before he'll be able to spot me. And so I'm going to move forward here, and so when you look at the overlapping of these circles, one of the things that I want to point out here is that you can look at this and go, oh, you move too far forward, right? And that's certainly in a sense the case. I mean, for their current position, that's not a problem, right? But if they come up over here and surf through over by this little there's a little depression over here, then they can theoretically be able to spot me. But there's a couple of things that are working to our advantage here. One is that there's a bunch of bushes along these ridges right here, which will help protect me. And two, the reason why I moved forward to here instead of 10 meters back is that you'll notice is that there's actual an increase in the elevation. So that's going to give me better shots down into these guys. And so what you'll see here is that I'll get better shots at these guys surfing coming across here, especially if they're inefficient surfers, then I'll get those shots. And then I always have the prospect of I always have the prospect of, if I do get lit, like let's say one of these guys YOLOs into that little depression, where I can just sort of fade back here, and this hill protects me from a lot. A lot of tank destroyers or a lot of 1-2 players will play like these guys are playing. See how they're relatively far back, so they're not actually going to get shots. I mean, they're likely to do the same thing on this north area where they're going to play a little bit too far back. So if you're gonna bite, be a little bit aggressive early, that's generally okay, in my opinion. And then once they know you're here, then you need to be a little bit more conservative. So all I'm looking now is to be opportunistic. So if one of these scouts overplays his hand, I want to be able to make sure that I pop. And they've got a lot of guys in this middle. And then, so see where this E4 is lit here? Unfortunately, none of our guys back here, they're just too far back to actually get shots on anything. Even if they were a little bit over more this way, just because of the way that the elevations work along this path, they're not really going to get shots. But this is how you take out these tanks early on. And then, so one of the things that you'll notice is that in this particular game, I'll shift forward and backwards a lot in order to control the distance between the light tanks that are surfing out here and basically the blue line. And you'll sort of get a feel for every game because some people have much more vision range than others. And any increase that you have in vision range over the maximum, which is 445 meters, will actually begin to cut into the camo of your opponent. So that time, our guy was actually in a position to get shots at him. And so all I'm going to do here is, as long as they keep presenting targets to me, I'm just going to keep shifting back and forth, controlling the distance and looking to get shots. And typically when you're looking to counter scout, you don't want to scan. You don't want to trace your enemy. You want to just aim in front of them, get fully aimed in, and take the shot. A lot of times, depending on the predictability of the scout path, you can figure it out. And so we're still getting guys surfing here, but if for some reason our light tanks stopped surfing, I would just shift off of this side. I wouldn't remain here unless I was continuing to get good shots. And our team is trading pretty well, so I don't need to be too crazy in how I position myself. And then that was just an example of aiming in front rather than tracing. And right there, the bushes help me more than my camera when he goes into that little ditch. But the other thing about that depression is a lot of tanks will go in there, but you can actually still shoot them if you're high enough on the hill. And then so now it's pretty much just mop up, but that's essentially how I see playing second line tanks. You want to be in a position where you're keeping your gun active, which generally means you're in a relatively forward position, but you still want to control the engagement. You don't want to be the guy that's lit the entire game, unless, you know, for some reason that is of benefit. And also, tracking people is never a bad option, although if, this mouse was not at a good angle to me. So if you don't have a good shot, hitting their track also really helps. That was just a bad shot by me. The Grille, the velocity on the base AP rounds on the Grille is really high, but it's not hit scan like the shot that I tried to take on that Grille just now. The other thing about, you know, especially if you don't win the center side, one thing about owning this 1-2 line and the fact that there is a lot of higher ground here is that as you progress forward, you can actually get shots into these guys on this 6 line pretty easily, which is a good way to clear that 6 line out. And then the rest is pretty much just mop up. They had a lot of guys back here, but I mean, it's just they weren't in a position to be effective. Not necessarily because they didn't have the surfing. I mean, they had just as much surfing as we did. It's just a lot of it becomes positional, which is why when you see the 1-2 line play, generally speaking, 1-2 line play is not super solid. Not because it's necessarily bad a priori. It's more of this idea that people just don't play it in a position where they can get shots. And so, like, if you look at these guys that were playing back here, it's unlikely that they took a large number of shots in that game. Whereas because we were in a forward position, at least for our side, right? We weren't forward, in front of their guys in the middle or anything like that, but we were certainly forward enough where we could get shots on everything. And that's really important to the outcome of the game, getting an opportunity to deal damage rather than waiting to deal damage. And it makes a difference in the game. Alrighty, so there we go. So if we look at stats, went through pretty much as expected. So let's see how many shots we ended up getting there. 12 shots in how long was the game? In a 6-minute game. So we basically got a shot every 30 seconds. The Grille reloads, let's say, every 15 seconds. It's lower than that, but let's just say it. So that means I was basically operating at 50% efficiency. It's difficult to operate very high efficiency because you just typically won't get that many targets to shoot at. But that's pretty good for a second line, a tank that's a second line tank. And so that's essentially what you're looking for. I don't think there's a whole lot more than that. Again, it's one of those situations where if I wasn't getting shots in the location where I was at, then I would relocate to some place that I could. You can't necessarily push in a lot of these tank destroyers, but you can always, depending on the speed of your tank destroyer, obviously, you can always relocate. And that's one of the strengths of the Grille. So I hope that this was helpful for playing those types of tanks, second line, and sort of controlling the distance of engagement. And yeah, thanks for watching.